It is a great pleasure and privilege to be here and to have the opportunity to address you all on this actually the end of the DLD conference today. In particular, welcome to all the organizers. As far as I know, this is the first time you are in Berlin. I find this a wise choice anyway, but I hope it was so good that you already have decided to come back sooner or later here to Berlin, because we actually we do need this kind of conference and debates you have here in the German capital as well. You know, this capital, Berlin, is humorously labeled every now and then as poor but sexy, and it has developed with this label into a vibrant hub for digital entrepreneurship. Fintech, e-commerce, blockchain, by the way, this is one of the cities for blockchain technology. The startup sector is becoming increasingly successful and visible. An attractive pool of talents from all over Europe and the globe, and a relative cheap costs of living have supported this development as much as Berlin being a trendy and hip city. And this location actually perfectly underlines it. So as I said, hope you have enjoyed the atmosphere here in Berlin so much that you not will just be in Munich for the future or in Brussels. You have started in Brussels as well, but here in Berlin as well. As you are all are aware, actually we are just about to debate how to form a new government here in Germany after our federal elections at the end of September. And now we have taking place talks, actually starting explanatory discussions, let's call it that way, between the Christian Democrats, my party, our sister party, the Bavarian Christian Social Union, the Greens, and the Liberals, to form a new government. We call this black, yellow, green, we call this Jamaica here in the German debate. And we are actually, after the first days, we can feel it will become hard. There are many issues on where we have very different approaches, point of views, like migration, like how finance, taxes, budget, other issues. But there's one issue we have actually a broad consensus on, and that is the digitization area, and that we want to actually bring Germany on the top of this here in Europe, and that we want to bring digitization on the top agenda of this new government. And that would be something new for a German government to do. And there are several areas, challenges we have to actively tackle actually, to address this will to become a top player more than we already are in Europe and the world. The last time I was on a DLD conference, I've said a lot about what we are about to do when it comes to venture capital and venture debt to make Germany more attractive for this. So I don't want to focus on this one, but regarding where we were 4 years ago and where we are now, I would say we have actually reached a lot in the past years. The biggest lag is still actually in the demand for bigger tickets when you need a bigger amount of money, 2-digit million or something like that. There we have a lag in Germany. There's still many companies that have to search abroad for this money, and we are just about in discussions with Brussels, because there come state aid rules in there to build something up there, and you fund for venture debt and venture capital in this area. But this time I want to focus actually on 3 other challenges. First of all, there can be no innovation or investment in the digital revolution unless it is supported by a powerful digital infrastructure. And in the past 4 years, we have seen investments of multi-billion euros in this here in Germany to build up, to expand the broadband network. The federal government alone has spent more than 4.4 billion euros to support the expansion of broadband in rural and remote areas where no private company would invest. So now we are roughly on a rate of 77% of households and companies in Germany that have access to at least 50 Mbit per second, and we want to reach 90% in the next in the next years with these investments. And so in general, our goal is to massively expand the fiber to the home network in the next 4 years to go over 50 Mbit, obviously. And this is not just about money and just pouring and adding a bigger amount of money to what we already do. It's about a regulatory framework as well. When there is a company ready, a private sector company, to invest and to build up a network, it needs to be sure, obviously, that there is a return on investment. And so it's about the regulatory framework for access to the network, who can use it, who of your competitors can use it, under which conditions. That needs to be re-regulated. We should secondly discuss as well, as we do it in water supply, for example. There is the distance you have to tackle, how would you say it, for the water supply, that the price is distance related in some areas. So you could do something similar. Why not as well when it comes to telecommunication? We do see, by the way, that even in those areas where we do have fiber to the home, only a certain percentage of people really do use it. So if you're a company investing, you obviously want to see people using it. And so we have, of course, it's not up to a public government actually to make people using private offers. But nevertheless, if we want these companies actually to invest more, we need to discuss at least how we can get a bigger rate of using it, in fact, not just having the ability and the network there, but how to make it used more in a bigger extent, though that there actually is a return on investment. And thirdly, we do realize actually all over Germany that capacities for planning and expansion are already reaching their limits. So pouring just more money would just be channeled into an increase of prices, but it would not bring more broadband. So we need to actually discuss how we can become faster without just increasing prices. Besides broadband, of course, Germany should aspire to become the leading market for 5G technology here, at least in Europe. Worldwide would even be better. We already have a master plan of the federal government that was just decided on 1 or 2 months ago. And actually this new incoming government now needs to implement it. It's not just about writing down a master plan, now it's about implementing it in the upcoming years. And for example, if we want to become the hub, the country for automation of the driving area of cars, autonomous driving, then actually we do need 5G all over Germany and not just in the big cities, otherwise it wouldn't work. And so that actually combined, our biggest strength is the automotive sector, is actually something that makes us wanting to achieve it. Second challenge is to make a provision of digital government services a priority. If you see how governmental or administrational services in Germany are handled, we are still in the 80s. That's still like the telefax society, more or less. And people, rightly so, do ask, why is it possible to transfer money just by your thumb or a mouse click? And if you want to register your car, you have to show up in person still in Germany. And there are many, many other examples. Actually, we do realize it's more complicated than you might think. There is a big conflict over responsibilities among the ministries and the federal government, obviously. There's a conflict among actually 16 data protection officers. Each federal state has its own, who interpret the law very differently, more often than it should be through a more ideological lens. And according to the European Commission, Germany is ranked 20th when it comes to making government services available via digital platforms. And we should aim to be among at least the top 10 of Europe's digital players, and that is something the new incoming government should address. Or we have invited, for example, was it the Prime Minister? Yeah, the Prime Minister of Estonia, actually to address the cabinet 1 year ago already, actually just to make clear where Estonia already is. Of course, it's a different starting point with 82 million people and with 70 years history actually of building up an administration and all the different areas you have. But nevertheless, this is the most obvious area in which an incoming government should and must focus on in its work to become a digital player in the world, because actually being good in digital administrative services or governmental services shows actually that you really want to become better in this. What needs to be done, first of all, we have changed already the constitution that was necessary, that the federal level has the ability and the legitimacy actually to build up a portal, as we call it, the Bundesportal, a federal online homepage actually, and that needs to be done now, but now we have the ability to do it, actually to build up something that includes all levels of government, the local authorities, the federal countries, the federal states, and the federal level itself. Because the average citizen is not interested in who is responsible for my passport or my car registration. They actually want to get it done on the internet, and we need to build up one platform. So we have changed the constitution for it. Next step is that we should have at least a state secretary at the German chancellery responsible for digitization in general, but for this digital administration in special, to coordinate this all. Everyone who knows how hard it is actually to reorganize a big organization, and I can tell you federal government is a very, very big administration, knows that you need the backing of the boss for it. And the backing of the boss is just shown by a state secretary in the chancellery with the backing of the chancellor, actually to finally do what we are talking about have been talking about for years, and now to become a real digital administration, and not just on a federal level, but all over. And that is one of the main focuses we should have in the upcoming 4 years. By the way, for this, we are working on it in our ministry already with some partners in the private sector. This includes, and for that you need a state-approved electronic identity. And that obviously makes it much more easier, not just to then use the governmental services, but you can use it then for everything, for your banking account, for whatever, even for Facebook then, for whatever you might need it for. Right now, actually there is nothing really state approved. For many things you use your Facebook account or whatever account actually to identify, but that is not enough. And so we want to actually bring it to another level and build that up in the upcoming years as well. We have already started, and as far as I see it, I would say Germany is very much ahead of it if we really are able to implement it now and actually to overcome the reservations we see in some of our ministries. Every now and then we have to address the Ministry of the Interior of Homeland Security on this. Third challenge, and that is the more general one, is the question of attitude and ambition. Actually, it's the question, do we take a passive, anxious stance and let the transformation roll over us? Or rather, do we take an active part in it and want to shape this? And that is a very fundamental general question. It sounds very easy, but when it comes, for example, to big data, the Germans are quite hysterical about data in general. I mean, when it comes to Facebook, they put everything on there, but when it comes to, for example, their own authorities to know something, and even if it is just big data anonymously, then actually they are very hysterical in some debates, or some of them at least. And the question is, do we just talk about the risks, or do we talk about the chances? And the focus of the German debate is very much on the risks, and not as much as it should be on the chances of it. And actually we should, in the upcoming years, in the upcoming 4 years, in the next government, try actually to change this attitude, this approach. For example, in our ministry, when it comes to blockchain and cryptocurrency, of course, like a ministry is, and public administration, everyone, first approach is regulation. And I said, no, before we regulate it, let's understand it. So actually what we did is we set up workshops, conferences in our ministry, trying to build up a network with people in the blockchain area, and just trying to understand what's going on. If you just take the ICOs, the initial coin offerings, seeing what's going on there, the billions actually that are meanwhile raised via this channel, that obviously needs to be supervised somehow, as it really starts to become big. But first of all, you should understand what's going on there. I think we are there almost. And then you need to debate if it needs to be regulated or not, and if so, how. And what I do learn in many talks or debates, panels I have with the fintech companies and others that are engaged in this area, actually most of them meanwhile say, please do regulate us. Why? Because then actually we have a certain legal base and framework we can work on. Right now we actually don't know. We are in a kind of gray area if that what we do is really legal or not. And no one wants to be, as we say in a German saying, with one leg in the prison. And so actually, is that good in English? Actually, one leg in the, well, whatever. So actually, they say, please do regulate us, but do regulate us in a way that makes things possible, and not that makes things harder for us. So, and if that is the approach, and it should become, at least I will try to help that we get there. It should become the approach of the new government. Let's first of all understand what's going on there. There are so many areas besides blockchain, artificial intelligence, many things you have discussed on this conference. First understanding it, then discussing if or how to regulate it, and then regulate it, and not this first reflex you always see, first regulation and then understanding. That's the wrong sequency. And so that is actually what I tried to implement in the past years in our ministry, and I think that is something we should try to set up in all ministries. Every now and then I said to some of my colleagues, actually every ministry should have a pitch once every quarter or something, where the head of the ministry, the minister, the state secretaries, and all the others actually have to attend. And that actually companies, startups out of, if it is fintech, if it is e-health, if it is legtech, if it is agrotech for the agriculture, that actually they can learn and get a feeling of what's going on in their area. Some houses have started that kind of openness actually to invite the scene to learn what's going on, and I think that is something that is very crucial. That is not about concrete measures, as I said, but it's about the general attitude and ambition towards this whole digitalization. And for all of this, it is very important actually that we have conferences like this to exchange, to network, to exchange views, to network, to get to know each other and the different point of view. So I'm very happy actually that DLD finally made it to Berlin. Of course, we always love to come to Munich, Steffi. Munich is in Burda, of course, it's a nice city, but nevertheless, I think this city is where the political decisions are made. And so actually, welcome to Berlin. I hope you enjoy the city, and please do come back, because actually we do need this kind of open debates and this chance actually to learn something about what's going on. Wish you a nice weekend.